In 1966, a tragic incident occurred when Everett Delano was fatally shot during a robbery at an auto repair shop in central New Hampshire. However, years later, new evidence discovered at the crime scene shed light on the case. Prior to the incident, Everett Delano led a busy life, juggling various roles such as a security officer, an overnight watchman, and even taking on part-time shifts at a combination gas station. His dedication to providing for his 3 children, Daryl, Darlene, and Denise, led him to work an exhausting 60 hours per week. Due to his career in the U.S. Navy, which involved radar and radio operations, the family had the opportunity to live in different locations across the country. From Rhode Island to Florida, and from California to South Carolina, they experienced a nomadic lifestyle. Despite the constant changes in scenery and friendships, their connection to Everett's extended family in Orange, Massachusetts, and his wife's family near New London, New Hampshire, remained steadfast. Although Everett would occasionally be away for extended periods while serving at sea in the Mediterranean, he made sure to spend quality time with his family when he was in town. As the children grew older, the family yearned for stability, leading them to settle down in Wilmot, New Hampshire, near his wife's family. This small town, nestled in the valleys of the mountains between Concord and Lebanon, provided the sense of permanence they desired. In 1964, Everett retired from the Navy, marking the end of his successful career as a chief petty officer. Transitioning to civilian life proved challenging for him, as he had held a position of authority and responsibility in the Navy. His son, Daryl, suspected that this adjustment may have been difficult for him. Despite his efforts to find work in radio or television repair, Everett struggled to secure a job close to Wilmot, as he was accustomed to short commutes while living on base. The prospect of commuting for over an hour to larger nearby towns was not appealing to him. Despite actively seeking other opportunities, Everett worked as a security officer during the night shift at Colby Sawyer College in New London, and also took on shifts at a gas station in Andover. On September 1st, 1966, just like any other day, Everett drove past the familiar colonial-style buildings with their iconic green shutters and dormer windows as he made his way down Main Street in Andover. Even in 2021, Andover remained a small town that lacked a stoplight. He arrived at Sanborn Auto Body, where he was employed. The owner, Kenneth Sanborn, had a partnership with Gulf Oil, resulting in a typical Gulf service station. It consisted of a 2-bay garage connected to a small office area with a walk-up window for most of the gas transactions. The building had a flat front, with a notch top adding a touch of architectural charm against a backdrop of white siding. Additionally, the town's post office was housed within the same building, making it a bustling center of activity for the community. Customers could get their cars fixed, collect their mail, and fill up on gas all in one place. At 8:50 a.m. that morning, Kenneth asked Everett to hold down the fort while he ran some errands. Everett primarily assisted in the office, handling transactions and refilling customers' vehicles with fuel at the pump. This was a time when gas stations offered full service, with attendants providing assistance. Between 8:50 a.m. and 9:25 a.m., there was regular activity, with transactions occurring approximately every 10 minutes. The cash register tape indicated 3 sales during this time. At 9:25 a.m., a local resident who was familiar with Everett drove by the station and greeted him with a wave. At that moment, Everett was in the process of reversing a vehicle and reciprocated the gesture with a smile and wave. Between 9:25 a.m. and 9:35 a.m., an armed robbery took place at the Sanborn Auto Body Shop, with Everett being the sole employee present. The thief confronted Everett and took all the money from the cash drawer, estimated to be around $75 to $100. The perpetrator, however, was unsuccessful in locating the concealed cash box that held an additional $500. Shortly after the robber's departure, a white vehicle pulled up and its occupants patiently waited, hoping for assistance in refueling their tank. Growing increasingly impatient when no attendant appeared, They were relieved when a couple of individuals arrived around 9:45 a.m., spotting the white car leaving. The woman behind the wheel shrugged her shoulders, indicating her lack of knowledge regarding the attendant's whereabouts, before driving away. Curious, the newcomers entered the office and heard what seemed like snoring. They noticed a man lying face down on the floor and assumed he was intoxicated. Closer to 10 a.m., 3 more men arrived and were informed by the 2 individuals present that someone was asleep inside. One of the men peered into the office and made a shocking discovery: a pool of blood forming beneath the man's head. He immediately contacted the New Hampshire State Police and the nearest hospital in New London. Meanwhile, one of the men from the initial group drove to a nearby Sanborn residence to inform Kenneth's wife. As they surveyed the scene, they realized that this was not just a simple incident, but a tragic crime scene. The police and paramedics arrived promptly, and Everett was swiftly transported to New London Hospital, where his condition was stabilized. Initially, the police suspected that he had been brutally beaten, but it was only upon examination by medical professionals that they discovered he had been shot 3 times in the head with a .22 caliber handgun. Everett's condition was critical, and he was transferred to Mary Hitchcock Hospital with little hope for recovery. Tragically, the following day at Mary Hitchcock Hospital, Everett succumbed to his injuries, leaving behind a devastated family who had lost a beloved father and husband. In the midst of the chaos, the police diligently worked to process the crime scene. Remarkably, the water in the men's restroom had been left running since the gruesome discovery, thanks to an incredible stroke of luck. Sanborn's wife, displaying immense wisdom and quick thinking, made sure not to disturb the faucet handles when she arrived. Instead, she shut off the water pump from outside to stop the flow. The investigating officers believed that the robber, who may have been the last person to touch the faucet, could have left behind a fingerprint on the shiny chrome fixture. With great care, the state police crime scene technician managed to extract a high-quality latent fingerprint from the faucet. The police conducted interviews with everyone present and thoroughly canvassed the neighborhood. Their efforts led them to Everett's friend, Marilyn, the woman he had waved to, and they even found a witness who heard the 3 gunshots while driving by the service station. According to the witness, the shots were fired at approximately 9:45 a.m. However, it was Everett's watch that provided the final word. A bullet had struck his watch, freezing the hour and minute hands at the exact time of the shooting, which was 9:35 a.m. Shortly after, an autopsy was performed, revealing that 2 of the gunshot wounds to Everett's head were inflicted while he was standing, while the third, which had gunpowder residue near the entry wound, occurred when he was on the ground. The murderer clearly intended to eliminate any potential witnesses. On September 7th, 6 days after the crime, the fingerprint lifted from the faucet was sent by the New Hampshire State Police to the Federal Bureau of Investigation for inclusion in their national database. In the following months, the state police meticulously checked purchase records of .22 caliber firearms and collected guns from nearby residents in Andover, as well as from individuals who had recently bought such handgun in the vicinity. The guns underwent ballistic testing, but none of them had discharged the bullets found at the crime scene or in the victim. Additionally, the investigators explored the nearby Blackwater River, hoping to find the discarded weapon, but their searches yielded no results. As a result, the case went cold by the end of 1966. In 1975, Rockwell International, a technology company, secured a contract to develop 5 automatic fingerprint readers. These devices were then delivered to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and over the subsequent years, the FBI successfully converted 15 million criminal fingerprint cards into digital records. This marked the beginning of the modernization of the outdated ink and paper fingerprint card system. Within the next decade, Rockwell sold similar systems to numerous major metropolitan police departments across the United States. By 1999, the FBI's database, known as the Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System, had become the world's largest fingerprint database, containing the fingerprints of 64 million individuals that were readily accessible to law enforcement nationwide. In 2009, the Cold Case Unit was established in the state of New Hampshire to investigate unsolved homicides. However, Everett's name was not initially included in the list of cases. He had been forgotten. It was not until 2013, when Everett's youngest daughter, Darlene, contacted the authorities, that renewed efforts were made to solve the 47-year-old cold case. Surprisingly, the fingerprint found at the crime scene had never been compared to the known criminals in the IAFS database. Gone were the days of manually comparing fingerprints, as the FBI's digital database in 2013 provided a swift method of matching crime scene prints against millions of individuals with criminal records. After analyzing the fingerprints collected from the bathroom faucet, investigators received a positive match. This match was further verified by cross-checking with the State Police Forensics Lab, confirming that the fingerprints indeed belonged to Thomas Cass, who was 20 years old in 1966. The lab also conducted tests on the hair found in the cash register and the cigarette butt discovered on the ground. Unfortunately, they were unable to extract any DNA from either of these items. It is worth noting that Thomas Cass had a significant history with the law. Between 1966 and 2000, he accumulated a total of 13 convictions for various offenses, including theft, armed robbery, aggravated assault, and even escaping from prison on 2 occasions. His final conviction in 2000 in Vermont was for manufacturing drugs within a federal prison. In the autumn of 2013, after 47 years had passed since the crime was committed, investigators from New Hampshire met with Thomas Cass. During their meeting, Cass informed them that he had enlisted in the Army at the age of 18, around 1963, and left 3 years later with a general discharge, which typically indicates some form of discrepancy. Cass admitted to spending a significant portion of his life behind bars and acknowledged his criminal history. However, he vehemently denied any involvement in Everett's murder. Furthermore, he claimed to have no knowledge of his own identity and even professed ignorance about the location of Andover, stating that he had only visited the state once in his lifetime. Several months later, investigators arranged a second meeting with Cass, during which they requested a DNA sample. Cass agreed to provide the sample. However, when asked to undergo a polygraph test, he declined. Around this time, individuals close to Cass, including friends, family, and his ex-wife, were also interviewed. His ex-wife revealed that Cass initially presented himself as a businessman and a criminal when they first met. She mentioned that Cass was employed as a roadie for a rock and roll band called Miles Connor and the Wild Ones, which was known for its energetic New England rock and roll, reminiscent of Jerry Lee Lewis's lively piano tunes. Additionally, Cass's ex-wife informed investigators about the challenging circumstances he faced while growing up, with an alcoholic father and an abusive household. She also mentioned that he had a history of violence and had made numerous threats to kill her. As a result, she obtained a restraining order and eventually divorced him. She also revealed that Cass would often boast about his criminal activities, proudly identifying himself as a career criminal. She strongly believed that he had no qualms about causing harm to others in order to achieve his goals. Several months later, in February 2014, investigators unexpectedly visited Thomas Cass. They informed him that forensic evidence collected from the scene of Everett Delano's murder in 1966 had linked him to the crime. However, Cass chose to remain silent and requested legal representation. Following the interview, a search warrant was issued in an attempt to locate the .22 caliber handgun, but unfortunately, the murder weapon was not found. 4 days later, on February 24, 2014, Thomas Cass tragically took his own life with a .45 caliber handgun at the age of 67. His girlfriend, Jane, informed the 911 operator that he believed the police were coming to arrest him that day in connection with a cold case. In an attempt to evade imprisonment once again, he decided to take matters into his own hands. In 2014, the cold case unit informed the Delano family about the fingerprint match and the primary suspect's suicide. With Cass's death, they expressed confidence in identifying the killer and stated that an official announcement would be made, along with the release of their findings in a report. However, it took 5 years to produce the report, which was finally released on February 20th, 2019, by the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit. They officially declared that, after 52 years, the case had been solved. Susan Morell, an assistant attorney general for New Hampshire who supervised the cold case unit, explained that the reason for the delay in announcing the resolution, despite knowing about it prior to Thomas Cass's death in 2014, was due to the rigorous verification process and the department's limited resources and staff. The Delano family has expressed their gratitude towards the initial investigators of their father's homicide and the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit. They are thankful for the diligent efforts that have led to this day, where they have finally received some measure of justice. Despite the fact that Everett Delano and his family never truly got justice as Cass evaded law enforcement by taking his own life, the Delano family can find solace in knowing that their father's mystery killer is no longer out there. On that fateful morning of August 9th, 1982, a truck driver stumbled upon a horrifying scene. As he went about his routine delivery at the Woolworth Garden Center, he made a chilling discovery, a lifeless female body lying amidst the bushes. The truck driver's heart must have skipped a beat as he noticed the woman's wrists bound behind her back with her own shirt, her jacket tightly wrapped around her left ankle. And to make matters even more gruesome, a bloodstain adorned the cinder block wall just above her lifeless form. The details that unfolded during the investigation were nothing short of nightmarish. A medical examiner revealed that this poor soul, identified as Karen Stit, had suffered a brutal fate. She had been mercilessly stabbed a staggering 59 times in various parts of her body. Her neck, chest, abdomen, and back bore the marks of a heinous crime. The cause of her untimely demise was determined to be the fatal stab wounds to her chest and neck. Now, the question that lingers in the air is, who was Karen Stit? What led to her tragic end? Was this a crime of passion, a vengeful act, or the work of a deranged serial killer on the loose? Sunnyvale, situated in Santa Clara Valley in northwest Santa Clara County, California, is a city that holds historical significance as it lies along the renowned El Camino Real and Highway 101. It shares borders with various neighboring areas, including San Jose to the north, Moffett Federal Airfield and National Aeronautics, and Space Administration Ames Research Center to the northwest, Mountain View to the northwest, Los Altos to the southwest, Cupertino to the south, and Santa Clara to the east. According to the 2020 United States Census, Sunnyvale has a population of 155,805, making it the second most populous city in the county and the seventh most populous city in the San Francisco Bay Area. Notably, Sunnyvale stands out as one of the few cities in the United States that has a unified Department of Public Safety. This unique department ensures that all personnel are trained as firefighters, police officers, and emergency medical technicians, enabling them to respond effectively to emergencies in any of these roles. Karen Stit, born on July 25, 1967, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to Robert Stit and Catherine Leszewski, had recently relocated to Palo Alto High School from her hometown. Despite being new to the area, Karen quickly adapted to using the El Camino Real bus routes to travel between her boyfriend's home in Sunnyvale and her father's house in Palo Alto. On September 2, 1982, Karen and her boyfriend spent the evening together, enjoying video games at a local 7-Eleven. Later, around midnight, they ventured towards Golfland, a popular miniature golf course. Eventually, at approximately 12:30 a.m., Karen's boyfriend left her near a bus stop at the intersection of El Camino Real and South Wolf Road as she planned to take the 22 bus back to Palo Alto. Tragically, the following morning, Karen's lifeless body was discovered just 100 yards away from the bus stop, along a bustling stretch of road filled with bars and restaurants. Investigators observed that the leaves and dirt around her feet had been disturbed and kicked, indicating that she may have still been alive when her body was moved to that location. The boyfriend expressed remorse for leaving her, but was concerned about facing consequences for returning home late. Despite the police department's collection of all genetic evidence at the murder scene, investigators were unable to identify a suspect, resulting in the case going cold for over 4 decades. Stit's boyfriend was initially considered a suspect, but was eventually cleared through forensic DNA analysis in the early 2000s. By the year 2000, advancements in DNA analysis technology enabled investigators to create a genetic profile of the suspect using a blood stain found on the cinder block wall above Karen's body. Swabs taken from the crime scene and items collected from the victim were also sent to the Santa Clara County Crime Laboratory. Analysis revealed that the DNA from an unknown male found on the wall matched the DNA profile from Stit's jacket and sperm cells found on vaginal slides taken during her autopsy. However, Stit's boyfriend's DNA did not match, and he was excluded as a suspect. Despite comparing the unknown profile to a national DNA crime database, no matches were found. In 2021, Detective Hutchison received a tip suggesting that a male member of the Ramirez family might be responsible for Stit's murder, prompting him to initiate a genealogical search. The identity of the tipster remains anonymous, as per police protocol. However, public records such as U.S. Census data indicated that the Ramirez family resided in Fresno, approximately 160 miles away from Sunnyvale, as early as 1950. Detective Hutchison discovered that there were 4 living Ramirez brothers after conducting further investigations. 2 of the brothers were ruled out as suspects, and the 3rd brother was conclusively cleared through DNA analysis. This left Gary Ramirez as the primary focus of the investigation. In early March, Hutchison successfully identified Ramirez's daughter and obtained a DNA sample from her on April 8th. The court documents did not disclose the method used by the detective to obtain the sample. The detective stated that investigators have discovered compelling statistical evidence linking the DNA of Ramirez's daughter to the unidentified male DNA found at the crime scene. This has led to Ramirez being identified as the primary suspect in the murder of the Palo Alto teenager 40 years ago. Gary Jean Ramirez, a 75-year-old man, has been accused of abducting the victim from a Sunnyvale bus stop, raping her, stabbing her 59 times, and then disposing of her body nearby. Through the analysis of bloodstains at the crime scene and the utilization of DNA and genealogy tracing, Ramirez, who was residing in a guest house on the Hawaiian island of Maui, was apprehended on August 2nd. Despite having no prior criminal record, Ramirez's 79-year-old brother, Rudy Ramirez, expressed shock at his brother's arrest and insisted that the authorities had apprehended the wrong person. Rudy revealed that Ramirez had served in the Air Force and had lived in various locations such as Colorado, Utah, San Diego, San Francisco, and Fresno, where he was raised. Ramirez had been married twice and had worked in different occupations, including as an exterminator, before retiring due to a hip injury. Rudy mentioned that he had lost contact with his younger brother in the 1980s, around the time of Karen's murder. During that period, Ramirez had temporarily resided with their mother in Fresno, and it was then that Rudy had invited him to move to Maui. According to Rudy, Gary had a privileged upbringing in Fresno and had no history of violence. He was a successful individual who seemed to excel in everything he pursued. However, as the years went by, Gary became more withdrawn. Despite the overwhelming DNA evidence against Ramirez, authorities are diligently working to corroborate various aspects of the case. They are urging anyone who may have had any connection with Ramirez throughout the decades to come forward with any additional information. The unexpected but long-awaited breakthrough in Karen's murder case has brought both surprise and relief to her friends and family. Ramirez's arrest has resurfaced painful memories that were buried deep within. Karen's time in Palo Alto was short-lived before her untimely death. Originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, She had recently moved to the Bay Area with her brother and father. Despite her brief stay, she left a lasting impression on her classmates. Michael Calhoun, a former boyfriend, fondly recalls his first encounter with Karen when she transferred from Pittsburgh to Palo Alto during his sophomore year in high school. He describes her as someone special, someone he was eager to know. Her radiant smile, beautiful feathered blonde hair, and unique way of speaking set her apart from other girls he knew. Calhoun clarifies that he was not the boyfriend who accompanied Karen to the bus stop on the night of her tragic demise. Living just around the corner from her, he initially refrained from pursuing a relationship with her due to her involvement with one of his close friends. However, he couldn't resist his feelings for her and eventually started dating her after seeking his friend's approval. Calhoun admits that he fell deeply in love with Karen, considering her his first true love. Although they took a break from their relationship over the summer, Karen expressed interest in rekindling their romance once school resumed. As a symbol of their connection, she entrusted him with a copper ring engraved with her name, a keepsake he still cherishes. Unfortunately, their plans to reunite were shattered when Karen was tragically taken away from everyone. Calhoun vividly remembers attending her funeral on his first day back to school as a junior. Calhoun remained steadfast in his belief that Karen's murderer would eventually be brought to justice. Losing her inspired me to pursue a career in law enforcement, not necessarily to solve her case, but to assist others in need, Calhoun explained. Even after relocating to Las Vegas, I kept in touch with the cold case detective in Sunnyvale. He mentioned that he was relatively new to the force at the time of the incident. He also shared that he was present at the crime scene that tragic night, making him intimately familiar with the details of the case. Thanks to advancements in genealogy technology, law enforcement agencies are now able to crack cold cases that had previously remained unsolved. This not only brings closure to the families of the victims, but also ensures that dangerous criminals are held accountable for their actions.